She never mentioned Melania directly, but a single question from Jasmine Crockett sent a shock through the White House and revealed a double standard the country has avoided for years. It began with the familiar atmosphere of a Capitol Hill hearing, papers shuffling, tired voices, and political posturing. But when Representative Jasmine Crockett leaned toward her microphone that Thursday morning, the tone in room 2141 of the Rayburn House office building shifted. The topic was immigration reform, again. Much of it had been routine, Republicans repeating points about law enforcement, Democrats emphasizing family protections. Cameras scanned across board interns and expressionless committee members. But Crockett had no intention of staying polite. She adjusted her blazer, looked straight ahead, and spoke clearly. If we're going to deport undocumented spouses for violating visa rules, she paused, then delivered the line. Do we begin with the First Lady? Silence followed, not the respectful kind, but the kind that feels like someone just overturned the table. 3 seats away, Representative Glenn Bradbury blinked quickly, his mouth slightly open as if he couldn't believe she'd said it. On the Republican side, quiet murmurs grew, papers lifted, a hand covered a cough that might have been a laugh. C-SPAN's captioning caught up seconds later. Phones buzzed throughout the audience. Rose, a staffer from Nebraska, lifted her eyes from her laptop, stunned, and mouthed, "Did she just say Melania?" Crockett didn't repeat herself. She didn't have to. She took a sip of water, glanced at her notes, and let the moment hang. Representative Paul Gentry, chairing the hearing, cleared his throat as if trying to regain control. "Let's keep the discussion respectful," he said, half to her and half to the cameras. But the cameras already had the moment. The internet had it too. In the last row, freelance journalist Lex Torres started tweeting. He didn't quote her directly. He didn't need to. His post read, "Crockett just dropped a bomb in the room. Deport your migrant wife." Within 13 minutes, that hashtag was trending. In under 2 hours, it hit national headlines. Inside the room, though, the fallout was quieter. Gentry attempted to continue, calling on a representative from Arizona, but even he seemed off balance, stumbling through visa quota remarks. Jasmine Crockett didn't smile. She wasn't celebrating. She looked focused, maybe even tired. She had practiced that line, likely knowing the effect it would have. Representative Molly Conincade, a Democrat from Oregon, leaned over and whispered, "That's going to blow up." Crockett replied dryly without turning. "Good." Across the aisle, Bradbury scribbled a note, tore the page out, and handed it to his aide. Moments later, a Republican staffer slipped out the side door, phone already pressed to his ear. Crockett's remark forced the party to make a quick decision, respond and escalate it, or stay silent and avoid drawing more attention to a subject no one wanted public. Outside the building, reporters were already gathering. Lex Torres spoke on a live stream. "She didn't say the name," he explained, "but we all know who she meant. And yes, the reports about Melania's visa history exist. People avoid it because, well," he shrugged. "They won't now." Inside, the hearing continued, but the tone had changed. Every word seemed sharper, as if everyone realized a major point had been raised, one they weren't supposed to acknowledge. 10 minutes later, Jasmine walked out with her staff, moving directly down the hallway. She didn't take questions, at least not yet, but she didn't seem shaken. She looked like someone who had finally said what others avoided for years. But while she exited calmly, tension was building inside the West Wing. Less than an hour after the hearing ended, the reaction reached the White House. In the private dining room beside the Oval Office, Donald Trump stood behind a chair, gripping it so tightly his knuckles paled. A TV on the wall replayed Crockett's now viral question on loop. The captioning was bold and unmistakable. "Do we start with the First Lady?" Trump didn't blink. He didn't sit. He didn't immediately raise his voice. He simply stared at the screen as if it had insulted him personally. Hope Daniels, one of his senior advisors, took a step forward. "We're preparing a press response. Just a short. Don't write anything," he cut in, eyes still fixed on the replay. She just claimed my wife should be deported. Daniels froze. The room was full. Chief of Staff Vic Marino, Press Secretary Carla McNair, Communications Deputy Rudy Finch, and a legal advisor few even recognized. Everyone waited for someone else to intervene. Trump finally turned. Where is Paul Gentry? He should have stopped it. Where is he? He tried, sir, McNair answered. He called for order. Not order, Trump snapped. He should have removed her. Suspended her. They'd suspend a Republican for something like that. The room fell silent. No one wanted to point out that Crockett had never actually said Melania's name, not once. That kind of correction could cost someone their job. She said, "First Lady." Trump muttered back, almost answering himself. She meant Melania. She didn't need to say her name. Everyone knew. Carla McNair glanced at Vic Marino, who shot her a warning look that said, "Don't." But Trump was already pacing. They think I won't respond. They assume I'll let that pass. I'm not letting anything slide. Get the GOP leadership on the phone. Gentry, Hollins, Janovich. I want a coordinated response ready before the 6 o'clock news cycle. Daniels moved toward her phone, but Trump raised a hand. No, wait. We don't just respond. We go big. Full coverage. Interviews. Op-eds. I want someone writing that this was unacceptable, that she should be censured. He paused, then asked, "Can we censure her?" Marino spoke carefully. Technically, yes, but it must go through the House Ethics Committee. Start it, Trump snapped. Get the paperwork. Let her feel it. They come after my wife? We go after their seats. Daniels looked up respectfully. Sir, if we push too aggressively, we risk drawing more attention to Melania's immigration history. It's already trending. Trump turned slowly. What do you mean trending? She tapped her screen and showed him. The top posts on X, formerly Twitter, read, #Deport your migrant wife. Melania visa. Crockett was right. One post had 500,000 views in 30 minutes. Another was an old clip of Melania on Larry King Live, where she avoided a question about her early work in the US. Trump's face tightened. Find those users. Every one of them. I want accounts suspended, reported, removed. I don't care how. No one moved. They're dragging my wife through the mud, and we're sitting here. McNair tried to steady the room. We can brief Melania, get her a calm sit-down interview, frame this as a personal attack. No, he cut in. She's not doing press. They don't deserve her voice. We speak for her. But I said no. He slammed his hand on the table. Water glasses shook. The room went quiet again. Daniels cleared her throat. Okay, so we coordinate a defense. Issue statements from allies. Fill the media with counterpoints. Trump nodded more slowly. Good. But make it personal. Not policy. Dignity. These people don't get to smear a woman who came here legally. Say that. Vic Marino leaned forward. Are you sure we want to emphasize the legality issue? It could reopen old visa questions. Trump stared at him. I said, say it. Outside the West Wing, reporters were already setting up on the North Lawn. Questions about immigration had taken a sharp new turn, and inside the building, the mood shifted from panic to strategy. Not because the anger had faded, but because it now had direction. But even as the White House prepared its response, one thing remained out of its control. The American public was already forming its own conclusion. By the evening news, every major outlet had the same lead story, though with different emphasis. Some called Crockett's comment reckless. Others called it direct. But one common thread ran through all coverage. A renewed public look at Melania Trump's immigration timeline, something the White House had hoped would stay buried. The irony wasn't missed. The administration had built much of its political identity on strict immigration rules. Yet now the First Lady's past was being questioned under the same standards applied to others. Cable news replayed the clip repeatedly, cutting between Jasmine Crockett's remark and old photos of a young Melania in early modeling shoots in New York. The contrast raised new questions. How did she go from Slovenian model to US citizen? By 9 p.m., independent journalist Clive Renshaw had already pulled archived interviews and documents. On his live stream, he explained, Melania came to the US in 1996. She says she had the correct visa. But records show she did paid modeling work before having a proper work visa. That's a violation. Minor, sure, but still a violation. And under current policy, would she have been deported if she weren't First Lady? His chat exploded. Double standard. She broke the rules. Anyone else would be deported. On Reddit, users reposted screenshots from a 2016 Politico investigation that raised the same issue during the campaign. It had faded then. Now, it was everywhere. Talk radio hosts heated up. A conservative host in Amarillo claimed, "This is the left targeting a classy woman because they dislike her husband." But even he stumbled when a caller asked, if she broke the law, why doesn't she face consequences? He changed the subject. That night, Fox ran a short defense, calling the criticism petty. But CNN and MSNBC went deeper, inviting former immigration attorneys who described clients deported over far smaller technical mistakes. One former ICE lawyer said, "I've seen parents deported for using the wrong social security number to get a cleaning job. This is a double standard millions feel." People began sharing their own stories. In Phoenix, a mother recorded a TikTok at her kitchen table. Her husband had been deported in 2022 for overstaying a visa by 6 weeks after losing his job during COVID. "I just want to know," she said through tears, "why my kids lost their father over a technicality, but Melania still gets to be First Lady like none of it matters." The clip hit 10 million views in a day. Newspapers picked it up the next morning. The St. Louis Sentinel headline read, "Who deserves a second chance?" And beneath it, "If Melania Trump gets one, why don't we?" The White House tried to push back. Press Secretary Carla McInerney held a tense briefing, calling the allegations baseless and already resolved. But when asked which visa Melania first entered with, she avoided answering. "I won't discuss personal legal matters from 30 years ago," she said. That only fueled more questions. Because now this wasn't just about Melania's visa, it was about a bigger issue the administration had long avoided. How do you justify deporting people for mistakes your own family made? The timing couldn't have been worse. ICE had just announced new raids in California. Images of crying children, locked apartments, and scared workers were circulating. And Melania remained silent. No statements, no social media, no appearances, leading to more speculation. On a podcast in Columbus, political strategist Celine Ward summarized it. "This isn't about wanting Melania deported, of course not. It's about why she gets leniency when others don't." Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett was preparing to speak again, and this time she wasn't holding back. It began with one 13-second clip. Within a day, it had been edited, captioned, remixed, and spread everywhere. Hashtag Deport Your Migrant Wife hit #1 on X by midnight, surpassing celebrity news and global stories. Influencers reposted it. Immigration activists amplified it. People who had never heard of Jasmine Crockett suddenly knew her name and the exact tone she used when she asked, "Do we start with the First Lady?" And it wasn't just journalists and activists. A high school teacher in Burbank recorded a reaction video during her lunch break. A cashier in Wichita made a TikTok about her uncle being deported for a late form. On YouTube, entire channels emerged overnight analyzing Melania's visa history like a case file. Not everyone agreed. Conservative commentators pushed back. Talk show host Wyatt Rucker went on a 10-minute rant accusing Crockett of attacking a graceful woman who came here legally. His clip was shared too, but not the way he intended. Viewers focused on one line. Melania's story stands apart. She married a successful American, and that changed everything. People didn't ignore it. Comment sections filled up instantly. So marriage cancels the rules now. Tell that to every immigrant couple ICE has separated. My sister married a citizen and was still deported. Even late-night comedians joined the discussion. On the Steve Ramirez show, the host opened with, "So, apparently, if you break immigration laws but marry a billionaire, it becomes patriotic. But if you break the law to feed your family, it's criminal." Makes perfect sense. Laughter followed, then applause. Then the tone shifted. Ramirez paused before adding, "This isn't a joke for everyone. Some people lost everything because of this double standard." That line was clipped and shared countless times. What fueled the reaction even more was how personal the conversation became. People weren't only commenting, they were revealing their own lives. One man posted a picture of his mother, writing, "She was deported in 2007. Visa error, no criminal record, no second chance. Melania keeps her platform." Quiet stories like this poured in by the thousands. What began as a political remark turned into a reflection, a painful one. Comment sections grew emotional. People described the fear of being taken from their homes, the weight of courtrooms, the emptiness of missing birthdays and weddings. Mixed in with the grief were constant comparisons to Melania's past, especially the modeling work she was said to have done before her visa permitted it. On Instagram, a DACA recipient named Marble expressed it clearly. She shared a photo of herself holding a stack of immigration documents with the caption, $3,000. 7 background checks. 4 years waiting. And I still don't know if I can stay. But sure, let's not question the First Lady. It was honest, direct, and painful. Even journalists who usually stayed neutral began to shift. CNN's Thomas Wellings, reporting from D.C., shook his head and said, "It's difficult to tell struggling families they don't qualify when the First Lady's story has this many gaps." Still, some people argued the reaction had gone too far. Calls to leave Melania out of it came from moderates, celebrities, and a few Democrats. A letter in the Hartford Register stated, "We can question policy without dragging a woman who isn't an elected official through the mud." But others pushed back. "She represents this administration's rules." One reader replied, "If she gets an exception, we need to discuss who doesn't." As the country debated, one thing became clearer by the hour. The conversation wasn't fading. It was growing. More voices, more stories, more comparisons. Jasmine Crockett's comment had struck a nerve, and it was too late to pretend otherwise. But while the online world erupted, Crockett sat quietly in a Baltimore hotel room, preparing to speak publicly for the first time since the uproar. And she wasn't planning to hold back. Jasmine Crockett sat at the edge of her bed in downtown Baltimore, legs crossed, scrolling through hundreds of mentions, tags, and message requests. Her team gathered in the next room, debating whether the interview scheduled for tonight was a risk or an opportunity. She could hear parts of the discussion through the thin wall. "She stirred the hornet's nest," her press aide muttered. "And these hornets have money and media power." But Jasmine wasn't unnerved. Not after everything she had read in the last 24 hours. Because mixed in with the threats, the radio criticism, and the cable news clips calling her disrespectful, she found a message from a woman in Fresno. "My dad was deported in 2019 after 27 years in the US. Your words made me feel seen. Thank you." That stayed with her. The hotel room carried the scent of old coffee and cleaning chemicals. Her makeup artist dabbed powder on her forehead. Her stylist adjusted her blazer. As 7 p.m. approached, Jasmine's phone buzzed again, this time from a member of the Congressional Black Caucus. "You're not wrong. Just be ready for the pushback." She was. Across town, a studio was being prepared for her primetime interview with Latrice Greer on Nation Talk Tonight. Greer wasn't known for soft questions. She was sharp, quick, and unafraid to challenge her own side. Crockett chose her intentionally. She wanted a real discussion, not a rehearsed apology. When the red light flickered on, Greer didn't waste a second. Congresswoman, she began, last night you lit a match. People are calling you brave, reckless, and everything in between. Let's get to it. Did you mean to imply that the First Lady should be deported? Crockett didn't flinch. What I meant, she replied, is that we can't enforce immigration rules harshly on one group while pretending those same rules don't apply to people with power. Greer leaned forward. You could have made that point many ways. Why this one? Because people ignore the truth when it's comfortable, Crockett said steadily. But they fall silent when the truth gets too close. I wasn't attacking a woman. I was pointing to a system. Greer nodded. You didn't say her name, but you knew who people would think of. I did, Jasmine said. And that silence after I spoke, that was the truth landing. No one in that room had a response. They just didn't want to face the issue. The interview aired live, unedited. Within minutes, clips spread everywhere. Her most repeated line came after Greer asked if she regretted her phrasing. Crockett answered immediately, no one earns a free pass because their spouse lives in the White House. It became a rallying line for some and a target for others. By morning, criticism had intensified. Fox News accused her of disrespecting the First Lady's role. House Republicans drafted a request for formal censure. One conservative commentator even called her un-American. But Crockett stayed firm. She tweeted, if telling the truth makes me un-American, what does that make the people deporting families over paperwork? That message went viral too. Behind the scenes, some Democrats were becoming uneasy. One senior member reportedly said during a private meeting, I agree with her in principle, but the optics are terrible. Another younger representative responded, maybe it's time we stop worrying about optics and start worrying about the people watching us. Reactions were divided but strong. At a rally in Cleveland, supporters chanted Crockett's name and held signs showing their families' immigration cases. But in Jackson, Mississippi, a small group of protesters waved American flags and carried signs saying, Respect the First Lady, in bold red letters. Crockett stayed focused. She appeared on another talk show that week, and when asked about her goal, she answered, I want fairness. I want the same patience shown to the powerful to also reach those who have none. And I want people to see the system for what it is, built to benefit a few. Her comments resonated with many, but they also opened the door for a political confrontation. The GOP now had to respond. The room where they met was cold in the way high-security spaces usually feel. No windows, no phones, only a long oak table and serious faces. This wasn't the public GOP. This was the off-record version used for difficult conversations, the kind never meant to be filmed. At the head of the table sat Russell Crane, House Majority Leader. He didn't start talking immediately. He scanned the room, looking at senior strategists, communications directors, and leaders of conservative PACs. Finally he said, flat and direct, this is a problem, and I want to know how we plan to fix it. A strategist cleared his throat. Pete Farnell, a veteran media advisor since the Reagan era, spoke. Sir, Crockett took a shot. But we handed her the opening. We avoided addressing the Melania issue for years. Now it's out, and people are noticing the double standard. Crane shook his head. We don't need to win Twitter. We need to control the narrative. Kendra Lame, deputy chair of Outreach, tapped a pen on a legal pad. The far right wants her punished, censored or pushed through several news cycles. But independents are unsure. The numbers are shifting. She turned a data sheet toward Crane. In the last 48 hours, we've lost 6 points with suburban women. They aren't upset about Crockett's tone. They're asking why we never explained Melania's situation in the first place. Crane leaned back and sighed. Do we have anything to settle this? Anything solid? Dominic Rain, legal advisor for the Ethics Review Committee, finally spoke. No confirmed violations have ever been released publicly. Melania's attorneys handled everything before the 2016 campaign fully started. We never published the documents because we didn't need to, until now. Crane narrowed his eyes. What are you suggesting? Rain hesitated. If we release the documents, it might calm things down. But if there's even a small technical issue, it could backfire. A heavy silence followed. Farnell spoke again. Or we avoid releasing anything. We shift the focus. Frame Crockett as obsessed. Say she crossed a line. Make it about her attitude, not the details. Lame gave a tight smile. The old misdirection trick. Watch one hand, not the other. Crane looked at her. Does that still work? She nodded slowly. If we move quickly. They began writing ideas on a whiteboard, lines they could use on conservative platforms. Attack on American women, disrespecting the office, politics of personal destruction. They discussed sending surrogates to morning shows, leaking talking points to friendly columnists, even staging a press event with Melania reading to children to project calm and compassion. Make her look steady above the noise, someone suggested. But not everyone agreed. In the corner, Robert Vance, a junior congressman from Nevada, folded his arms. What if we just answer the actual question? Crane looked irritated. What question? Whether she broke the rules, and whether it matters. People aren't asking if Crockett was rude. They're asking if she's correct. The room paused. Then Crane shook his head. We don't walk into traps. We move around them. Rain added quietly. And if we admit to a double standard, it won't stop with Melania. It will extend to donors' relatives, volunteers we helped, every exception we've ever made. Crane snapped his fingers. Exactly. This isn't just about her. It's the structure we're protecting. The meeting continued past midnight. When it ended, a coordinated plan was ready. By morning, GOP spokespeople filled the media with a new narrative. Jasmine Crockett was making immigration personal, turning legality into a weapon. None of them addressed Melania's visa records. They didn't need to. They assumed the public would lose focus before demanding answers. But this time, people didn't look away. Melania's silence was becoming louder than any statement. She had not spoken at all. No tweet, no statement, no acknowledgement when she briefly returned to Manhattan 2 days after the hearing. Her silence made the situation worse. Reporters tracked her every move from Morristown Airport to her black SUV. Cameras zoomed in, hoping for any expression, but her face remained unchanged. Inside her Fifth Avenue residence, only longtime aides and a personal stylist were allowed in. Staff claimed she wasn't watching TV, but they were doubtful. One source said she had been glued to the news the first night, pacing with her arms crossed. She knows exactly what people are saying, the source said. She just refuses to respond the way they expect. Her silence sparked even more debate. Cable news analysts discussed it as though it were a strategy. Some saw it as a deliberate refusal to engage. Others called it out of touch, a lack of empathy when millions faced the same system now under scrutiny because of her. On Morning View, analyst Howard Leeds said plainly, her silence isn't neutral anymore. It signals, intentionally or not, that she believes she's beyond the rules others have to follow. The host added, and that's the whole issue. The silence feels like, I'm above this, and people notice. Her supporters argued the opposite. Former First Lady consultant Rachel Deont said on a podcast, she's not a politician. She's a mother, a wife. She's not required to respond to an angry congresswoman. But that defense carried less weight now, because unlike Melania, thousands of immigrants did not have the privilege of silence. At a CNN town hall in El Paso, someone in the audience asked, if I stayed silent during my ICE hearing, would I be treated with dignity or sent back on a plane? No one on the panel answered. And still, Melania said nothing. Her scheduled appearances began falling apart. A literacy event in Tampa was cancelled. A hospital visit in New Hampshire was postponed. When asked why, a spokesperson said, scheduling conflicts, but insiders knew the truth. The White House didn't want her facing questions. Some aides suggested a gentle interview with a friendly outlet, a controlled Q&A avoiding visa issues. Melania declined. She doesn't want to explain herself, an aide said. She doesn't think she needs to. But the public wanted more now than before. People could forgive mistakes, but not indifference. In a Kansas City Ledger op-ed, immigration attorney Priya Sethi wrote, "It's not the possible violation that angers people. It's the silence, the privilege to ignore what others must fight to survive. That's what hurts." Her words spread widely. Even some Republicans admitted privately that Melania's silence wasn't helping. "She should have said something," one aide told Politico. "Anything, even a basic acknowledgement. This ghost routine makes it worse." Still, Melania stayed quiet. Back in Washington, Jasmine Crockett noticed. Speaking briefly outside her office, she said, "People are bending over backward to keep this woman from answering a simple question. If I, as a black congresswoman, had even a small visa mistake, I'd be dragged through the system until my career was gone. But Melania Trump gets to act untouched." She didn't smile or raise her voice. She simply added, "The silence says more than any statement." Meanwhile, across the country, people were finding their voices. In a small apartment in Stockton, California, Rosa Alvarado sat at a kitchen table with her youngest child asleep in her lap. The TV was muted, but the headline read, "Melania faces questions amid immigration debate." Rosa wasn't political. She worked long hours at a food processing plant. But when she watched Crockett's comment replay on a friend's Facebook post, she whispered one word, "Finally." Her husband Daniel had been deported 5 years earlier.